Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime. And I am your host as always, Professor Prime. And welcome to Super Ultra Mega Math History. Phenomenal Figures. The series where I talk about different figures throughout math that I find interesting and that contributed something that was awesome to math, and as these things usually turn out the world. And in this case, I'm going to focus on Hedy Lamarr. Now, some of you all might know that name, and some of y'all might have to look up that name. And for those who know that name, you might know her best for her acting career. And that's what you typically find, I think, on a lot of places, on a lot of sites, and a lot of books and all that. But as time progresses, I think you'll find things shifting a little bit where those things get mentioned, but like her place in STEM history gets mentioned more as well. So, Hedy Lamarr was born in the 1900s, early 1900s, and survived until like 2000, dying at age 85. And in her life, she did a lot of interesting things. Like I said, she's primarily known for acting, but what a lot of people don't know, but are knowing more and more over time, is that she was also an inventor. Like she was incredibly creative, and even though she didn't have formal education, pretty proficient with math and engineering. Now, she had several marriages and three children, and when she had her first marriage, she actually was I think it was her first marriage. She was married to an ammunitions dealer, um, and she eventually fled that marriage because she wasn't happy and definitely not okay with some of the crazy stuff they were doing at that time. And to give you an idea, this was like mid to late 1930s. So she was from Austria originally. In any case, she eventually found her way to America, and while she started off in acting pretty early on, she actually always had an interest in the world and how things worked. So in the 1940s, during World War II, she meets and befriends a composer and piano player. Now together, they at some point were talking about the war, and they were talking about weapons. And there was a problem with the missiles that were being fired from the Allies at the time, and one of the issues was blocking or jamming the signals. And so they got together and they concocted a pretty cool device. I think what it's called a secret communication systems, and it dealt with like frequency hopping. And if I had to try to describe that in a way that will appeal to like everybody without me going into excessive detail, the basics is that the problem with the radio controlled missiles like were that they were getting blocked or jammed, right? And the idea is like this stops that blocking and jamming by pretty much having like the frequencies change all at once. And there was some cool stuff related to the mechanics of piano involved in that. But the big idea was like they invented this device, and at the time, the military wasn't taking a lot of ideas from civilians or anything like that. They felt like those ideas just come from the military, and they also felt like things were a bit complicated for them to implement at that time anyway. So it did get rejected, but not forever. So around 1960, the idea comes back up, and originally her and the composer, which is George Antwell, um, they didn't get credit for it at the time. However, a few years after that, they finally did, and that's been cited whenever you get that sort of thing. And what I find interesting is, so with like that sort of technology that they were implementing at the time, a lot of it ends up, surviving into our time and being part of some pretty big stuff, like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, and all that good stuff. So, like, who's to say that all of that would happen without them doing what they did, you know? So it was absolutely crucial, and they never got paid for it. And I think the logic was like they felt like they were doing their part for the war when they thought it up. But like even when they got credit for it, they never got paid for what they did. And I think the world would be a different place if they didn't do what they did, because you know people will come along and kind of built off of they kind of built off of what they did, and now we got like a world where we do have like that Bluetooth, that Wi-Fi, GPS, and all that. So I think that's fascinating, and I don't think that when her name is mentioned, you hear this stuff enough. Not saying that you don't hear it at all, because you do. Like I had to hear it at some point, and I know other people have too. But she is primarily known for her acting career, even though she was big into inventions and she was very just creative outside of acting. And I also think it's worth noting that you have someone who's like art, like creative and just like in tune with their artistic side, but also like in tune with that mathematical side, that logical side, that STEM side. And I think that's pretty cool because people like to think that you know it's either one or the other, that they're these two disparate things, but they're not. Everything is connected. Creativity and logic is a beautiful thing. And I'll also link a video I had on that below because I'm actually like really proud of that video, and it is related to the subject matter. And I think people would enjoy that. So yeah, I'll link that, but I'll get back to the video though. So I think all that is cool, and just for the record, it's worth noting that she at some point during her acting career didn't like the idea of being typecast, so she co-founded a studio where she would go and she would star in some of those movies as well, and it was successful. Now, she did a lot of this cool stuff, and eventually, as she got older, she got pretty secluded, especially during like the last 35 years of her life or so, and she would talk to people mostly by phone, which is unfortunate, but she did a lot though, and as far as I can see, like led a pretty cool life. And I don't think things would be the same if she didn't work with her friend on like a pretty cool idea. And I think it's a shame that when I have heard about her in the past, until recent years, that is, when I have heard about her in the past, I knew her as an actor and didn't hear about all other stuff. Because, like, yes, she was an actor and a good one, but she was other things too, and that's just usually how it goes in life. Like you do one thing, sure, but you have other things. You might have other professions. You might have a lot of interests and hobbies that people wouldn't necessarily think that you have. Like I mean, I'm big on math, but I do a lot of things as well outside of that. So it's like you're not just one thing. Like I'm not just a mathematician. She wasn't just an actor, and chances are, whatever you do, you're not just that one thing. And I think that's amazing. But I don't want the video to be too long, so I'll try to like sum that up real quick. Which is that like Hedy Lamarr was like known for her acting, but she was also big on invention, and that is something that is popping up more and more. She co-created an invention that like impacts our daily lives today, and she had a very very logical mathematical mind in addition to having a very creative one, and she was just very interested in seeing how the world works and doing good and bringing something great to the world. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one. Professor Prime out.